Well, for the past few weeks at Next, we've been going through a series called Confronting Christianity, and each week on Thursday we upload one of these Q&A videos where we respond to some questions you guys had from the topic that was talked about on Tuesday. And the topic that we tackled on Tuesday was, doesn't Christianity crush diversity? Which is a really hard question, and so Anya Burns is here to help us answer some of the questions that you guys had about diversity. So Anya, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Yeah, appreciate it. So we'll jump right in without further ado.
Cool.
First question for you. Why is it important to recognize the beauty in diversity?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is, like, when Jesus was on earth, he didn't blur the lines, you know? I think when we try to blur the lines between different ethnicities, we're kind of trying to, like, take control of who God created us to be.
Yeah.
And he created us differently to reflect his image differently. So, like, celebrating diversity is really just about, like, seeing the different aspects of God in different cultures, I think is a big thing. And, like, when we blur the lines between different cultures, we're kind of ignoring, like, God's unifying power. Like, a big part of the gospel is, like, he's brought different people all together and united us. And so when we don't see those differences, there's not really any power in what Jesus did.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's the idea of the gospel unifying is really big, especially for this topic. But it's cool to hear that that's part of the beauty of what's being celebrated.
Yeah,
so that's
sure.
awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Next question for you. What does it look like to celebrate diversity without it feeling forced?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
So that's a really good question.
Yeah, I think, it's a very common question. It's honestly probably one of the biggest ones I hear is, like, how do I actually, like, take steps without it feeling like, you know, force? Yeah. And honestly, what I would say to that is, like, it's going to feel forced naturally. Like, in order to actually enact change in your own life and also just, like, in your community, is to take proactive steps and, like, be very active. So, like, I don't think it being forced is necessarily bad. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I'd say. Like, in order to actually change your own heart and also, like, diversify, like, your community, you're gonna have to be active.
Sure.
You're gonna have to be bold. And I think even when I was thinking about this, it's kind of similar to the way we view, like, sharing the gospel with people around us. Like, we'll be like, oh, well, like, I don't want to shove it down their throat.
Sure.
But, like, eternity is at stake. And when it comes to this, like, unity and community is at stake. Like, there's a lot at stake, and so we kind of have to get over that, like, well, I don't want to feel like it's a lot, or, like,
Right. Yeah. You just, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is almost you just have to go do it because it's the best thing for it. So
there's too much at stake to, like, shy away from it because you don't want it to feel forced.
It's got, I think that's like a young adult thing, or at least our generation is like the awkward, like, you don't want it to be that awkward confrontation kind of thing. So you'd rather not do anything since it's way more comfortable to do that, you know. So no, that's really helpful. So last question. As a black Christian, what is one thing you wish white Christians would know?
Yeah, I think when I was thinking about this question, I think my mind immediately went to, like, what do I, as a black American, want white Americans to know? But then as I thought about it more, I was like, okay, in the aspect of just church and Christianity, I think the biggest thing is, like, reliance on the Holy Spirit. I wish that more white Christians would, and this is just in general when it comes to spirituality as a whole, like, I wish we just relied on the Holy Spirit more. I think your first instinct when it comes to social justice issues and stuff is to, like, run to a book and run to, like, an article or watch this movie and things like that, and all of those are so great. Like, they teach you so much, but you don't take that next step to be like, okay, now that I've ingested this information, like, what is the Holy Spirit teaching me? And, like, what steps do I personally need to take? And, like, those are things that, like, only the Holy Spirit is going to help you with. And so instead of always going to our Black friends or like books and articles and stuff, I wish that people would take that next step of like, okay, Holy Spirit, like now that I know all of these things, like what step do I need to take?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And I think that's something that we're often guilty of in many aspects of life. And I think this is specific to this as well, of thinking of the Spirit as like the forgotten God, or a lot of times like the frozen chosen is like kind of what we're called. So it's a tough thing, because that is what we're called to do, is we're called to go to the Spirit. And I think that is really helpful. That's helpful for myself to hear too. So that's really good.
Yeah. And I think like the Holy Spirit is going to give you discernment and wisdom and all of those things. Like when you think like, oh, what does this specific like person of color in my life need? Like the Holy Spirit's going to help you with that more than any book or movie or
100%.
post. So
yeah, no, that's really good. That's really helpful. So yeah. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Anya, thanks for answering these and being here. I really appreciate it. So if you guys have more questions, or if you want to follow up to some of these answers, feel free to shoot me an email at alex.hotes@redemptionchapel.com or message our Instagram account. But if you don't have any more questions, we will see you on Tuesday.